I'd like to introduce Kai Fuentes. She is a prominent figure in the field of multicultural market research, serving as a president and founder of Ebony Marketing Systems, a firm dedicated to understanding diverse consumer segments. She is a second generation market researcher who refers to herself as a market research brat. Having been immersed in the industry from a young age, Kai conducted her first in depth interview at the age of 12 years old. She has since developed a strong expertise in qualitative and quantitative research methodology. She has over 20 years of experience in qualitative and quantitative research that facilitates the identification of ethnic bound perceptions and attitudes. Kai established EMS in 2011 after recognizing the need for a specialized focus on multicultural marketing research. Her previous experience includes a decade as project research director at Novacell Research, where she led significant projects for major clients such as McDonald's, Chrysler, and the U.S. Department of Army. Under her leadership, EM has become a key player in multicultural research, emphasizing the importance of authentic engagement with diverse communities to avoid common marketing pitfalls. Welcome, Kai. Pleasure to talk to you.
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
To start our discussion, can you share with us a bit about yourself, your journey, and which aha moments inspired you to focus on the work you're doing today?
Yeah. So, as you said, I am a market research brat. So, I grew up in the industry. My parents had a research company in the late 70s, early 80s. I later came on and was started out stapling at 5 and, working within the business for many years. This is what I've only done professionally, is research, and in particularly for the multicultural markets. So I am carrying on a legacy from my parents and what they started. And I think one of my aha moments is understanding the importance of people of color, that we need a voice and that we have so much spending power. But people didn't really research us or want to know what we thought or how we purchase things. So my aha moment is continuing the legacy of giving people of color a voice, giving folks that are not, in the light, and giving them a voice. And that's really what it's about. And especially now in our time and where we are, it's more important than ever to hear what folks of color have to say.
So this is a different direction you were taking than your parents when they started their research company?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's different ways that we've done things. I think my parents ran their business differently than how I run mine, and that's kind of like from a managerial standpoint. But other than that, it's pretty much the same work that my parents did. And actually, no, that's not true. We've pivoted more into social science research, which has been huge for us. So, working with Black mothers breastfeeding, or working on projects with the CDC specifically for people of color, and how they are receiving food nutrition, how they're receiving information in that way, or working with underserved populations, the Vietnamese population, the Hmong population. How are they receiving information? So we've really pivoted more into social science research. In 2017, I had my second child, and I had an epiphany. I guess this was a aha moment for me. And we were doing a lot of work, consumer research, which is great research to do. But I wanted to be fulfilled. And I think I realized when I became a mom for the second time that I wanted to give this kind of leave this world a little bit better than I came into it as in. So I'm like, what can we do? What projects can we do that sings to our soul as a company? So we sat down, we talked about it as a company, like, hey, what projects do we want to start going after? And it was a unanimous decision that we all wanted to really make change and do things for our particular community. Our team is so diverse and we come from so many different backgrounds, and we are multi-generational team and all the things. And we were all like, hey, we really want to just do things that are helping our community. And so we call it things that sing to our soul. So that's kind of the differentiation between a lot of things that my parents did and then what we are doing now. So we work on projects that make a direct impact. It's so cool when you see something on the side of a bus or on a New York City train that's talking to this particular population, and you're like, "Yeah, we did the research on that." That's another aha moment, like, "Okay, we're making change here."
So let's go back to the moment when you were 12 years old and did your first in-depth interview. Was there a particular aha moment that you said, "Hey, I've been working in this, but this is definitely for me, and this is what I want to do in the future"?
Yeah, the aha moment was, "I love this, I'm good at this, and one day it will be my turn." And it was just kind of that simple, and, I pursued other things. I mean, yeah, I pursued other career paths, very, very, very short-lived, because research just spoke to me. I love hearing people's journeys, I love talking to people, I love people. So it just all made sense at 12, and it's so funny, Darshan, because I was such a shy kid, like, nobody will ever think that now, but I was just like a shy girl from Queens, right? And research, and because I had to intercept people so young, research really created this other extrovert person. But real deep down, I'm an introvert. So it's interesting how I kind of work between both worlds, where there's some moments where so extroverted and I'm like, "Hello, I'm Kai." And there's other moments where I'm just like, "Okay, I'm gonna be a wallflower and hang out here and I just need my space." But research really brought out the extroverted piece in me because what if you're not extroverted, you're not gonna make your quota. And at that point in time, my pay was like, I don't know, like $1 an hour, and I was able to get all the Hello Kitty smelly erasers that I loved. Um, and at that point in time, that was my motivation, Hello Kitty, all things Hello Kitty. So, and then I realized I like being extroverted. Um, because unfortunately in society, when you're extroverted, you can get people are listening, and I want people to listen to me. And I found that, yes, you can move in silence, but being extroverted has, really helped me in life. Speak my mind, be able to speak clearly, be able to just relate to anybody. So it's interesting. Yeah, from 12, I realized, I'm doing this.
And I'm sure it boosted your confidence quite a bit. I also started out when I was young in high school, by doing mall intercepts. And, I mean, you get a lot of rejections, but you also learn how to connect with people. So I'm curious, what in particular made you realize that you really like asking and talking to people? What was it about that was different for you?
I like stories and I like hearing people's stories. I think that people act a certain way for a reason. And I tell my boys this all the time. Like, they'll say, oh, this person's acting this way, that person's acting that way. And I'm like, well, do you know their story? Do you know why? Like, maybe that there's a reason for that. So I like to understand the why from folks. And then I can understand their story. And then that gives me the ability to give them more grace. So it's kind of like this whole thing wrapped up into one where it's like, okay, I'm hearing your story, I'm hearing where you're coming from, and now I can give you grace or react accordingly based on, your story and your triggers. I think that's really important. And I get a lot of mall intercepts too. That's how I started was, intercepting in the mall and being rejected. And that tells you a lot about yourself. At 12, it's a little bit harder to deal with than later on. Um, but I learned from an early age though that, it's not always about me. I was intercepting one time, and I think it was the way I approached them. And they were like, I'm really taken aback by how you approached me. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then they walked away and then they came back and I think they realized how young I was. I was probably like 15, 16 at the time. And they're like, I'm really sorry. I just found out that, my mom is really ill and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just a little on edge, and I appreciated that. And at that age, I realized, hey, sometimes it's not me, it's other people have things going on, and so it's not always about me.
So, how would you define the word insights?
Yeah, it's funny, I'm old school, right? So I still say market research. I know what's pivoted to insights. I would define the word insights is that you're getting an insight into someone's world. You are getting a direct, especially, in qualitative research, you're getting a direct insight into how somebody thinks, feels, reacts, shops. You're getting an insight into their journey. So that's how I would describe insights.
Yeah, because I can tell you like digging deeper. So I'm curious. And a lot of people use the word insights, not only just from from this shift from market research to the word insights, but in terms of you're always pursuing insights. So I'm curious, how would you actually define it? Because sometimes people say it's a fact, others say it's trends. I mean, there's different definitions of it, and I think it's interesting because a lot of people use it, but often they're having different meanings of the word insights. So that's why I was wondering, how would you actually describe it or define it?
I think it's a great question. I would probably define it that it is a fact in somebody's journey. I think it's all about the person's journey. And I think there are certain trends within insights, but I think insights itself, it's a factual thing. It's a factual thing that, a certain population purchases something because there's a reason why. So there's a fact there. So I think insights it's factual. It's all based on primary research. So it's absolutely factual.
I often give the example of, I think a person gives great insights or a really good comedian, right? They take something from over here, put it together, and makes you say, you know, oh my God, I never thought of it that way, but that's really interesting. I mean, to me, that's an insight. It's a combination of facts, trends, everything, but they taking, two things that were maybe unrelated in one's mind, but then put it together. And it's something, often insights is some things, there are things we already know, right? But an insight gets articulated in a way that we had not articulated it before, like a core truth. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I agree with that. Do you feel that insights is something that we know, but we know it subconsciously and not necessarily consciously? Because sometimes there's insights that we know about ourselves, but it's not in our conscious mind and it's more in our subconscious mind.
Well, of course, as you know, 95% of our decisions are made from the subconscious, right? And you being a big fan of qualitative, you're digging deeper and deeper. So that process is actually tapping into their subconscious, right? You're starting to think more about how they think, they feel, what, things that make them do this or not do this. And this is something they probably don't articulate. It's just done, right? But now when you have the conversation, you're digging deeper and deeper and trying to learn that. And that's when you are, I think, uncovering things in their unconscious. But you have to listen carefully because even then, people can't articulate sometimes as best as they might even think or feel it, right? It takes a while. And so ultimately, you do get to those, I think, core truths. And I think as a good researcher, you have to still make that final connection as what are people saying, but actually what's really going on at the underlying triggers and motivators.
Absolutely. And even sometimes that happens, like if you're, having a spat with somebody, sometimes it's not the actual spat itself. It's not the fact that, oh, you didn't take out the trash, but it's really last week you didn't blah, 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 blah. Or, we do that all the time. And I think it's important to allow people or to give people the space to figure out and to formulate their thoughts. So I've been doing a lot of, qualitative research is really I'm in love with qualitative research. I'm having like a second wind of falling back in love with qualitative research. Um, recently we started at our firm started asking less questions on moderators guides. And we're coining it as less is more. And there's power in that because to that same point, as we are trying to move or bring insights from people's subconscious to their conscious to explain it, we need to allow people to have space. And to your other point of yes, listening carefully to know when to probe and to figure out when to probe, or is this a good time to probe? So you can really dig deep into what they're thinking and they can bring those ideas to the conscious and to their forefront. So we started really narrowing our guides down to about 5 or 6 questions, which it sounds crazy to some people, but quite honestly, we're finding that we're getting better insights. We're getting more stories. We're allowing more people space, more grace to think about what they want to say. So it's not this rote, okay, so why do you say that? Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Like that just gets rote after a while and you can lose a respondent that way. So giving folks space to think and to formulate their thoughts so they can bring information from their subconscious to the conscious is powerful. It's really powerful.
Yeah, outer yak, so you're actually trying to get them out of the subconscious or to articulate their thoughts that are in their subconscious. Whether it actually becomes part of their conscious, I'm not sure, but I mean, it's certainly more than anything articulating it, right? And that's the real kernels of information and things lie. I'm curious, why did you fall out of love of qualitative, and how did you get back in love with qualitative?
Yeah, I think when you've been doing something for so long, you fall in and out of love. Happens, you know? I think there's a difference of loving something and being in love. Two different things. And it's like, I always love qualitative research, but then there's times where I just fall back in love with it. And I think that really depends on the topic that we're talking about and going back to things that sing to our soul. I fell back in love because we were doing other projects that were really singing to our soul, and clients were giving us the space to really try this less is more method of, asking less questions, allowing more space, allowing more grace, allowing more time for the respondent to formulate their thoughts, and then I was like, "Huh, qualitative research, I think we're back in love." So, I always love it, but there's times where you're just like, "Okay," and then you gotta keep things spicy to fall back in love. That's okay.
What are 3 things you would like to tell people who may not have been doing or have not done multicultural research that they should really know that these things really are different or should be, strong tips to do when you are doing multicultural research?
I would say 1, research your audience because the way you would recruit an unacculturated Latina mom is different the way you would recruit AAPI mother.
Can you give me an example if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. So, here's an example. We found that for, Latina moms, you can email. That's okay. An email is fine, and then a confirmation phone call is okay in terms of recruiting. For an AAPI mother, in our experience, or folks from the AAPI population, you have to call them, and you have to break bread, and you have to tell them that it's gonna be okay, and you have to really sit down and, give them confidence that we really wanna hear what you have to say, and, give them what's the word I'm looking for? Have them feel safe. So, it's just 2 different styles, of recruitment methods, and even in groups, right? Like, some groups, some subgroups, we can have men and women in the group depending on the topic. For some other cultures, we do have women in the group and then men in the group separate depending on the topic. So it's really interesting. We found for the African American population, we can have men and women in the group together. Almost any topic except for like women's reproductive and all that stuff, obviously, right? But for some other cultures, if we're talking about money, and I'll use the AAPI population as an example, if we're talking about money, we will have 2 separate groups. We'll have a men group and a women group because women are gonna open up more about money. They're not gonna defer to the men in the group. But for the Black community, it's a little bit different. So I would say understanding your audience, that's one. And research, is so much research out there for, research is everywhere. So that's one. 2, if you're feeling shaky, call a partner. Reach out to there's amazing multicultural researchers out there. Not just myself, but there's other folks out there that are doing really great work. Reach out to somebody. And when you do reach out to them, fall back and trust them. Because there's been so many times where we've had a client, reach out to us and say, "Hey, Ebony, can you guys do blah 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 blah?" Yeah, sure. Yep, we got this. And then there's like this micromanagement. And then well, it's like, well, you hired us. Do you really trust us? And it can be a back and forth thing. I think now, though, as a more experienced leader, I am able to nib that in the bud. And my team is trained to do that accordingly as well. So I would say just know your audience. And if you don't, reach out to a partner. And if you do reach out to a partner, trust that partner. And also know if you're going into this kind of work, it's important work. So we need folks. We need folks helping in this work. It's very important work, especially in the social science world, because a lot of policies and procedures and government stipends and stuff like that is dependent on this research. That's why it's so important to have and to continue research in the government.
So obviously, there's been a lot of changes, seismic shift and changes on multicultural and diversity now in the U.S. And I'm wondering, how are you seeing that? Maybe it's too early, I'm not sure, but how is that? Are you seeing that in the conversations and the insights you're seeing in the groups you're conducting now?
It's early. It's very early, so we haven't seen. Well, yeah, actually, yeah, we actually we yeah, we have seen some change. So we're talking to this client about working with a particular population, and we're afraid that this population won't show because of all of the new rollouts that are coming. Um, so yeah, it definitely has. With it, what it's been like 3 weeks since things have changed, and we have seen some changes in that way.
Yeah, I'm curious how I'm sure it's gonna have some impact for sure. I'm just not sure how. And I don't know if you had any insights or ideas of which way it's gonna change or how it's gonna impact your business.
Yeah, I think for us, we're small, so we can pivot, and we've been pivoting for the last 20 years. Really. We do a lot of state and local work, which has been which has been great because there's some state and local municipalities that are continuing to spend. There are lots of nonprofits that are continuing to spend. So we kind of just move where the work is. And at this point in time, we're experienced. We know where things are. We know how to uncover the stones. We know how to continue to, to get that work. So I think that's what it's gonna be for now. And there's also a lot of projects that were earmarked in the prior administration that, that money is already set aside, or those projects are already set aside. That's why it's good to have a good pipeline. Pipeline is huge, right? And that's my third. Ha ha ha! I had an aha moment. Having a pipeline in this work is huge because it's so specific and it's so targeted. We're not talking to, you know, um, white soccer moms that drink coffee twice a day, you know? That's not what we're doing. We're talking to the Hmong population in Minnesota, right? So that's the kind of things that we focus on. So having that pipeline is important as a business owner in this industry in particular.
I'm curious how much of your recruiting or conversations actually include these populations internationally? Is it just pretty much within the US?
We focus nationally. We have our hands full with that, really. And we do groups internationally, but for the most part, it's 98% of our work is done nationally.
Sure. I know in some cases, multinationals, if they wanted to know if the difference between, let's say, American Filipinos versus the Filipinos in Philippines, to see if there's any differences. Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't had a request for that, quite honestly, but we would have a request for that, taking that same example with Filipinos in Queens versus Filipinos in California.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because there are regional differences there.
So now having had the years of experience that you have, if you were to give tips to that 12-year-old uh, Kai, what tips would you give her with the experience and knowledge you have now to expedite her career and knowledge even further?
Talking to the 12-year-old Kai, I would say,
Or maybe 16 if you want to go a little bit older.
16, yeah. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and take your time and stay in the moment more. I had privileged to be around so many multicultural pioneers, that taught me the ropes of research. Had them in my living room sometimes, it's like, wow. Because I grew up with that and they were, friends of my parents and all these things. And I would take those moments. But at 16, it's like, okay, well, they're here again. All right, I'm gonna go do something else. But take those moments and really cherish those moments more and cherish your mentors. I think I did a good job with that, but I probably could have done better. And know that, to get to your destination, there's going to be lots of bumps in the road. I've had lots of bumps in the road, but it's the grit and the perseverance that kept me going. And that's how I really got here. It's the showing up every day and giving it the best you have every day and showing up and just showing up. So I'll just tell myself to continue to show up, appreciate your mentors, be in the moment, know that there's bumps in the road, have that grit, and you'll get to where you need to get to.
Are there any bumps in the road that you're grateful for and that changed the way you think or the trajectory you were on?
Oh, yeah. I had a pretty big bump in the road in 2015. I had a bump in the road 2011 when I first opened because my mom closed her shop in 2010, 9-ish, 10-ish, and I was running her company. So we had bumps in the road there because she was winding down. And then I was like, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. And then I was like, okay, no, I'm going to do this. And then, I've had a lot of bumps in the road. I think one bump in the road in particular was in 2015. And I felt that the bottom was falling out because it was. It was. And I had to really dig deep and fall back in love with, because I fell out of love with the whole business, with research, and I was like, "Do I really wanna do this?" I was questioning myself. I was like, "I could just close down now and blah, 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 blah." But it was that grit that kept me going, and I learned in 2015 the art of pivoting and how, as a business owner, you really have to be creative, and there are moments where you have to be creative, and you can't be too big to do anything, right? You have to be creative and humble. In 2015, I was really humbled, and, I had to figure out ways to continue the business and, continue to perfect my craft. So I learned then to be nimble, be humble, and be creative.
So what was your pivot? I'm curious. What did you pivot?
Well, I had a very big, some legal things happened, and it was significant to me and my business, and I had to dig deep, and I had to have the grit, and I had to have the creativity to hang in there and to come out on the other side, and come out on the other side even more successful than going in. And I learned that when you are going through these things and these trials and tribulations and all these things that happen, when you come out on the other side stronger, and in some instances, you come out on the other side more prosperous, and really that's what happened. And from there on, just things just really took off, and I was more confident in myself after that time. I was more confident in the business after that time, and I was like, "Oh, no, honey, I've arrived." Yeah, so that was some pretty crazy trying times, and it tested me, and, there's other times where I've been tested, but that was probably one of my biggest.
I know what you're talking about. I think this is something I actually think everyone should kind of experience at one point or another, though people might think I'm being sadistic, but I'm not. And I think that the point is, these are one of these moments in your life where you're like really kind of, let's say, hit rock bottom or something, or you feel like, everything in the universe is going wrong. And you're at that moment, do you laugh or do you cry? Right. And it's a defining moment because it's one of those things when you say, are you a survivor or not a survivor? Right. And if you come out as a survivor, it's incredibly liberating.
Isn't it? It's
Yeah,
yeah,
because
no.
then you say, "Look, I can think, I can breathe, I can do." And you say, "Okay, let's just bring it on. Let's do it. Knock it out one by one." And really, that's often half the battle in business is perseverance and stick to itiveness, right? And if you can get through that, and if you can learn to laugh with it, it's even better because the next one's going to be even less daunting and so on. Because you're going to hit speed bumps all the time, right?
Exactly, exactly. And, when all that was happening, I was super young to deal with everything I was dealing with at that point in time. And I was a mom too. And I remembered, Thai food is like my love language. I love Thai food and I will travel to great lengths to get good Thai food. And I remembered I was really, really, really upset about everything that was happening. And then also a lot of personal things were happening too. So it was like a perfect storm of the business was having issues. I was having personal issues. Like it was just a whole thing. And I was in a stupor and I was pretty upset. And I remember my husband came in. He's like, "What can I do for you in this moment?" I was like, "Thai food, please. A glass of wine. I'm gonna cry tonight, but tomorrow morning the sun will shine and I'm gonna come out swinging." And that's exactly what I did. Like, I allowed myself the time to give myself what I needed at that moment. And at that moment, I needed Thai food and wine. Okay. Um, and I needed to watch reruns of Sex in the City and just zone out. And I did all that. And I probably did that for 2 days, really, realistically, maybe 3.
But you came out knowing you're a survivor.
And I came out knowing the next day, hey, listen, I can't sit here like this. I'm either gonna move or get run over. And I moved and pivoted and yeah, it was a trying time. But I look back at that and I'm like, okay, so when other stuff comes, I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, okay, kind of thing.
But now that you've been through it, would you wish you had not gone through that moment? I bet you wish you're so happy you had that moment.
I'm so thankful for that moment. I am in gratitude for that moment. I'm in gratitude for that time and all the other times that I thought I was gonna quit and pack up. I'm grateful for all those because I'm on the other side of that now. Now I can tell others and help others and also, create a safety net for myself mentally, moving forward. So yeah, it's all part of the journey, and it's all part of understanding understanding the journey. And that was a huge piece of mine.
I'm curious, what role or impact is AI having in your business now?
Yeah. Well, things are moving a little quicker, I must say. You know, um, we use AI, but we use it responsibly. So we will use it edit emails or putting a screener together. We need to get all the soda brands. Let's just say, use that as an example. Okay, we're able to do that very quickly on AI. So it's had a helpful effect. It's almost like another helper if you use it responsibly. Now, are we writing reports with AI? No, no, because that's not we feel at this point in time, and maybe that will change. And maybe by the time this podcast airs, it will be different. But the way it's moving so quickly. But right now, so who knows? But right now, in this moment, in this exact moment, no, we are not writing reports with AI or with AI helper in that way. So it has impacted us, but in a helpful way because we're using it responsibly. And we know that it is the future. So we will once again pivot and and see the next steps. But you also I think folks also have to wait and see, how because it's morphing so quickly every day. I'm interested to see how it what well, I think we know what it's gonna do. It's gonna be like a real yeah, it's no joke. But it's been helpful.
So, what do you see in the future for you in terms of where you'd like to focus or do in terms of multicultural marketing or research?
Yeah, continue to do the work that sings to our soul because it's good work and it's work that's impacting cultures and communities. So continue continuing to do that good work, also helping other folks of color, in particular women of color researchers, like, come up and that want to do their thing and, being a support system for that audience. And, later down the line, eventually um, really fall into my wellness practice, which is something I'm very passionate about. Meditation and yoga and being zen in my next chapter is really where I want to be, because being a business owner has its stressors. And I've been doing this for a long time. And after a while, it's like, okay, ready for your next chapter. But I got a little bit more gas left in my tank. Right now. I'm back in love. So we'll see how it all shakes out.
If you could have lunch or dinner with anyone in your industry, who would it be and why?
Anyone in the industry? Oh, interesting.
All right, you can give me one in the industry, one outside the industry.
Okay, I'll start one outside the industry first.
Okay, sure.
Michelle Obama.
Okay, why?
Well, we have the same birthday,
Okay.
and we're both Capricorns. I know we talked about signs before. We're both Capricorns. We share the same birthday, and I just appreciate how she moves in the world. Like, she has style, she has grace, the way she is able to talk to people, the way people relate to her. She's just a real role model, a real role model. So I would definitely say Michelle Obama over Thai food and wine, of course.
That was a given. I knew that.
Okay. Just checking. And in the industry, I think I've already done this with this person, but maybe we could do more of it, is Miss Pepper Miller. She is a pioneer multicultural researcher as well. She started, back in my mom's day. So her and my mom know each other. They did work together for years. I would also add to that, maybe it would be a group dinner. And maybe it would be all of my mentors, Ron Franklin, Esther Franklin, Michael Johns, Paul Warner, my parents, Rick Bates. Shout out to all of them. They really paved the road for us. And they were dealing with all kinds of things. And they persevered and came out on the other end and paved a road for other multicultural researchers. So I think it'd be a group there. Thai food, of course.
Of course, they better like Thai food for sure.
Of course.
Well, listen, guys, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for being on Getting to AHA. I appreciate your story and insights and tips. So thank you very much.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me.
Getting to AHA was brought to you by iResearch. To find out more about us, head to iResearch.com and make sure to search for Getting to AHA in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else podcasts are found. And don't forget to click follow to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you for listening.